The desert wind whipped Eliza's dark hair across her face, but she didn't flinch. Her eyes, the color of chipped flint, scanned the horizon, missing nothing. 10 years had passed since the massacre, but the memories were as sharp as the Bowie knife strapped to her thigh. She was no longer the frightened girl who witnessed such horror. Now, she was a woman forged in fire, tempered by loss. Her rifle, a Winchester Model 1873, felt like an extension of her arm. She could disassemble and reassemble it blindfolded, a skill honed through years of relentless practice. Every movement was precise, economical. She moved with a quiet confidence, a predator in her natural habitat. The townsfolk of Redemption, a dusty speck on the map, watched her with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension as she rode in. They saw the way she sat her saddle, the way her hand instinctively hovered near her gun. They sensed the darkness that clung to her like a shroud. Eliza didn't care what they thought. She was here for one reason, and one reason only: revenge. The ghosts of her past demanded it, and she would not rest until their cries were silenced. She was a storm brewing on the horizon, ready to unleash its fury. The flickering lamplight in the saloon couldn't chase away the darkness that clung to Eliza's mind. She closed her eyes, and the whiskey did little to dull the sharp edges of memory. It was supposed to be a new beginning. California. Gold. Hope. The wagon train, a slow-moving caravan of dreams, had been her family's everything. Then came the ambush. Screams ripped through the air, mingling with the thunder of gunfire. The attackers, faces hidden behind bandanas, swarmed the wagons like angry wasps. Eliza, just 16, huddled beneath a wagon, the acrid smell of gunpowder filling her nostrils. She saw her mother, her face frozen in terror, fall as a bullet pierced her chest. Her younger brother, clutching a wooden horse, was cut down without a second glance. The scene was a blur of violence and chaos. Wagons burned, their contents spilling onto the blood-soaked ground. The air filled with the cries of the dying and the triumphant shouts of the attackers. Eliza could only watch, paralyzed by fear, as everything she knew and loved was ripped away from her. It was a nightmare painted in shades of red and black, a nightmare that would forever haunt her waking hours. The faces of the dead, contorted in agony, were etched into her soul, a constant reminder of her failure to protect them. Redemption was a town built on secrets, and Eliza's arrival stirred them like dust devils in the wind. Her presence was a disruption, a reminder of a past that many wanted to forget. She was a ghost returning to the scene of her own death, a specter of vengeance riding into town. The whispers started immediately. New blood, they muttered, sizing her up. Trouble follows her. Men lingered a moment too long, their eyes assessing her strength, her purpose. She ignored them, her gaze fixed on the landscape. It hadn't changed much. The same scrub brush clung to the parched earth. The same vultures circled overhead. Word traveled fast in a town like Redemption. Sheriff Brody, a man whose face was etched with years of hard living, watched her from across the street. He knew who she was, or at least he knew the rumors. Eliza Bloody Carter, they called her now, the woman who had survived the Carter wagon train massacre. He wondered what brought her back. Whatever it was, he had a feeling it wouldn't be good for Redemption. Her return was a stone thrown into a still pond, the ripples spreading outwards, disturbing the fragile peace. Her presence was a challenge. As Eliza settled into a room at the dilapidated hotel, a knock echoed through the thin walls. A man stood in the doorway, his smile wide and easy. "Name's Caleb," he said, extending a hand. "Heard you were new in town. Figured you might need some help getting your bearings." Caleb was handsome in a rough-hewn way, with kind eyes and a disarming charm. He claimed to be a rancher, familiar with the surrounding territory. He offered to show her around, point out the best places to get supplies, maybe even share some information about the area's history. Eliza was wary. Kindness was a rare commodity in this part of the world, and she'd learned long ago that most people had an angle. Still, she couldn't deny the potential value of an ally. "I appreciate the offer, Caleb," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "But I prefer to work alone." "Suit yourself," he replied, his smile faltering only slightly. "But if you change your mind, you know where to find me." He left, leaving Eliza with a lingering sense of unease. Something about Caleb felt off. His eagerness to help seemed too convenient, his eyes too knowing. Was he genuinely trying to befriend her, or was he a pawn in a larger game? She couldn't be sure, but she knew one thing. She couldn't afford to trust anyone. Eliza decided to ride out of town, needing to feel the open range beneath her. She chose a winding path through a narrow canyon, the towering rock walls offering a false sense of security. It was a trap. A hail of gunfire erupted from the cliffs above. Eliza reacted instantly, diving from her horse as bullets chewed through the air where she'd been moments before. The horse, startled, bolted down the canyon. Eliza scrambled for cover behind a boulder, her rifle in hand. 3 men, faces masked, rained down lead. They were skilled, their shots coming close, forcing Eliza to stay low. This wasn't a random robbery. They knew who she was, and they wanted her dead. The ambush was brutal and efficient, designed to eliminate her quickly and quietly. Eliza returned fire, her shots precise and deadly. One attacker cried out and fell from the cliff. The other 2 pressed their attack, their desperation growing. Eliza knew she couldn't stay pinned down forever. She needed to move, to find a way out of the canyon. The failed attempt on her life confirmed what she already suspected. The past wasn't buried. It was waiting for her, ready to spill more blood. The fight had begun. Back in Redemption, Eliza started piecing together what she knew. The ambush in the canyon wasn't just about silencing a survivor. It was about protecting something bigger. She visited the local undertaker, a gaunt man named Silas, who remembered the Carter wagon train. He recalled rumors of gold, a hidden stash that the Carters were supposedly carrying. Eliza didn't believe it. Her family weren't prospectors. They were farmers seeking a fresh start. But the rumor provided a starting point. She began asking questions, subtly probing the townsfolk. Most clammed up, their eyes darting nervously. But a few, fueled by whiskey and loose tongues, offered snippets of information. Whispers of a land grab, a powerful businessman named Thorne who wanted the Carters' land, a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of the town. The wagon train massacre wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a calculated move in a much larger game. Eliza realized she wasn't just fighting bandits. She was up against a network of powerful and ruthless individuals who would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. The deeper she dug, the more dangerous it became. Every question she asked, every stone she overturned, brought her closer to the truth and closer to death. While digging into Thorne's affairs, Eliza stumbled upon another name. Samuel, a quiet, unassuming man who worked as a blacksmith. Silas, the undertaker, mentioned Samuel had also been on the Carter wagon train. Eliza sought him out, approaching him cautiously. Samuel was initially reluctant to speak, his eyes filled with a deep-seated fear. But when Eliza revealed her identity and her purpose, a flicker of recognition ignited in his gaze. He, too, had lost everything that day. He confirmed Thorne's involvement, revealing that Thorne had been eyeing the Carters' land for years, wanting to expand his ranch. However, Samuel had secrets of his own. He admitted to witnessing something during the massacre, something he had never told anyone. He saw Thorne himself directing the attackers, but he was also carrying a significant amount of cash, far more than a blacksmith should possess. Eliza suspected he knew more than he was letting on, but she needed his help. They formed an uneasy alliance, bound by shared grief and a thirst for revenge. Eliza knew she couldn't fully trust Samuel, but he was the only ally she had. They would work together, but she would keep a close eye on him, wary of his hidden agenda. Their partnership was built on a foundation of secrets and suspicion, a fragile alliance forged in the fires of tragedy. Eliza and Samuel met at the saloon, trying to blend in with the raucous crowd. Samuel nervously recounted what he saw during the massacre, providing more details about Thorne's involvement. Suddenly, the saloon doors burst open, and Thorne's men flooded the room, their eyes scanning for Eliza. Someone had betrayed them. The music stopped, and the saloon fell silent. Thorne's lieutenant, a hulking brute named Hank, stepped forward. "Eliza Carter," he announced, his voice booming. "Thorne wants a word." Eliza knew this was a trap. "Tell Thorne I'm busy," she replied, her hand resting on her gun. Hank smirked. "You don't have a choice." A tense standoff ensued. Every eye in the saloon was on Eliza, waiting to see what she would do. She couldn't outgun them all, but she wouldn't go down without a fight. Using a distraction Samuel created by knocking over a table, Eliza dove behind the bar, grabbing a bottle of whiskey. She hurled it at the chandelier, plunging the saloon into near darkness. In the chaos, she and Samuel slipped out the back, disappearing into the night. They had escaped, but they knew Thorne wouldn't let them get away so easily. The hunt was on. Fleeing into the wilderness, Eliza and Samuel sought refuge in an abandoned cabin. While tending to their wounds, Samuel confessed something that chilled Eliza to the bone. He revealed that Thorne wasn't acting alone. He was taking orders from someone even more powerful, Sheriff Brody. Eliza was stunned. Brody, the respected lawman, the man who was supposed to protect the town, was the mastermind behind the massacre. It all clicked into place. Brody had been subtly manipulating events, steering investigations away from Thorne, protecting the conspirators. He was the puppet master, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Samuel explained that Brody had a vested interest in the Carter's land. It contained a valuable mineral deposit that Brody wanted for himself. He had used Thorne as a pawn, promising him a share of the profits in exchange for eliminating the Carters. The revelation was a crushing blow. Eliza had placed a sliver of hope in Brody, believing he might be an honest man. Now, she knew the truth. He was just as corrupt and ruthless as Thorne, if not more so. The betrayal cut deep, fueling her rage and solidifying her resolve. She knew what she had to do. She had to bring down Brody, even if it meant sacrificing everything. The hunt had become personal. Eliza, trusting Samuel's knowledge of the area, followed him to what he claimed was a safe haven, a hidden cave system known only to him. As they entered the cave, Caleb stepped out of the shadows, a gun pointed directly at Eliza. Samuel had betrayed her. Caleb revealed that he had been working for Brody all along, feeding Eliza information, gaining her trust, and leading her into a trap. Samuel, desperate to escape his own past and the guilt he carried, had made a deal with Brody, Eliza's life in exchange for his freedom and a share of the mineral wealth. Eliza felt a surge of anger and betrayal. She had allowed herself to trust, to hope, and it had cost her dearly. Caleb disarmed her, and Brody's men dragged her deeper into the cave. They beat her, leaving her bruised and bloodied. Brody arrived, his face a mask of cold indifference. He intended to kill her slowly, making her suffer for disrupting his plans. As Brody raised his gun, Eliza closed her eyes, bracing for the end. But even in the face of death, she refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. She would die with her defiance intact. Just as Brody pulled the trigger, a tremor shook the cave. Samuel, consumed by guilt, had detonated a small cache of dynamite he had hidden near the entrance. The explosion created chaos, sending rocks and debris flying. Eliza, seizing the opportunity, kicked Brody in the groin, grabbed a fallen knife, and stabbed one of the guards. She fought with a ferocity born of desperation and rage. The years of training, the pain of loss, the sting of betrayal, all fueled her. She was a whirlwind of violence, driven by a single purpose: revenge. She managed to fight her way out of the cave, leaving a trail of bodies in her wake. Battered and bruised, Eliza stumbled into the desert, her body screaming in protest. She found a hidden spring, cleaned her wounds, and took stock. She was alone, unarmed, and hunted, but she was alive, and that was all that mattered. She would make them pay. She spent the next few days gathering supplies, acquiring weapons, and planning her attack. She knew Brody would be expecting her. He would be prepared, but he underestimated her. He underestimated her resilience, her cunning, and her unwavering determination. Eliza was coming for him, and she wouldn't rest until justice was served. The final confrontation was coming. Eliza chose her battlefield, redemption itself. She knew Brody would be holed up in the sheriff's office, surrounded by his men. She started by setting fire to Thorne's ranch, drawing some of Brody's forces away from the town. Then, under the cover of darkness, she slipped into redemption, a ghost seeking vengeance. The final showdown was a brutal dance of death. Eliza, armed with a rifle and a Colt revolver, moved through the shadows, picking off Brody's men one by one. She used her knowledge of the town to her advantage, turning alleyways and rooftops into killing zones. The odds were stacked against her, but she fought with a skill and determination that surprised even herself. Brody's men, panicked and disorganized, struggled to contain her. They had underestimated her, mistaking her for a grieving woman seeking revenge. They didn't realize she was a force of nature, a storm of fury unleashed upon them. The battle raged through the night, the silence punctuated by gunfire and screams. Eliza pushed herself to her limits, her body aching, her mind focused. She was driven by the faces of her family, by the memory of their slaughter, by the burning need to make Brody pay for his crimes. The end was near. With most of Brody's men dead or scattered, Eliza stormed into the sheriff's office. Brody stood waiting, a shotgun in his hands, his face betraying a flicker of fear beneath his hardened exterior. "It's over, Eliza," he said, his voice strained. "You can't win." "It was over 10 years ago, Brody," she replied, her voice cold and steady. "When you slaughter my family." She recounted the events of that day, the screams, the bloodshed, the horror etched forever in her memory. She accused him of greed, of sacrificing innocent lives for a worthless piece of land. Brody didn't deny it. He admitted his desire for the mineral deposit, his willingness to do whatever it took to get it. He saw the Carters as an obstacle, a nuisance to be eliminated. "You think I regret it?" he sneered. "I'd do it again." Those words sealed his fate. Eliza dropped her rifle and drew her Colt. Brody raised his shotgun, and the final duel began. It was a close-quarters battle, a desperate struggle for survival. Eliza dodged and weaved, avoiding Brody's blasts. She fired her revolver, each shot finding its mark. Finally, with a well-aimed bullet, she struck Brody in the chest. He staggered back, his eyes wide with disbelief, before collapsing to the floor. The mastermind was dead. The silence that followed Brody's death was deafening. Eliza stood over his body, the Colt still smoking in her hand. The adrenaline faded, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. She had achieved her revenge, but the victory felt hollow. The townspeople emerged from their homes, their faces a mixture of fear and awe. They had witnessed Eliza's fury, her unwavering determination. Some saw her as a hero, a savior who had rid them of a corrupt sheriff. Others saw her as a monster, a bringer of violence and chaos. Eliza didn't care what they thought. She had done what she had to do. But the faces of her family still haunted her, their smiles fading into the darkness. The revenge hadn't brought them back. It hadn't erased the pain. It had only left her emptier than before. She knew she couldn't stay in redemption. She had stirred up too much trouble, made too many enemies. And more importantly, the town held too many painful memories. She had come seeking closure, but all she found was more loss. The cycle of violence had to end, but at what cost? She was forever changed. The weight of her actions would forever burden her. As dawn broke over redemption, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, Eliza saddled her horse. She glanced back at the town, a place that had once represented hope and had ultimately become a symbol of pain and loss. She was leaving behind the ghosts of her past, but they would forever remain a part of her. She rode west, towards the setting sun, leaving redemption behind. The faces of her family, though faded, were still etched in her heart. She knew she could never truly escape the memories of the Wagon Train Massacre. They would always be there, a constant reminder of the price of violence, the cost of revenge. But she also carried something else with her, a newfound strength, a hard-won understanding of the world, and a glimmer of hope for the future. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she had to keep moving, to keep searching for a place where she could finally find peace. The road ahead would be long and difficult, filled with challenges and uncertainties. But Eliza was ready. She was a survivor, a warrior, a woman forged in the fires of tragedy. She would carry her scars with pride, a testament to her resilience, her courage, and her unwavering spirit. She rode on, a solitary figure against the vast horizon, forever changed by the events of redemption, but determined to find her own redemption. The sun set, casting long shadows across the land as she disappeared into the twilight.